McCarthy.
Yeah.
You don't know what you have.
100%.
This is a similar situation to what the Niners did with Trey Lance. Like, if the guy can't stay on the field, and again, limited, you have to do what's best for the organization.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Florida State put up 498 rushing yards on this defense, 8 rushing touchdowns, and they almost averaged 10 yards per carry.
Tough scene.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. It should be 60 to 7.
Yeah. Give me the 7.
I just gave you the 7.
Exactly. And
are you
the
on this?
Point. I'm thinking field goal and maybe a
but
safety.
But are you on
Joe.
this? This is
Over
your best
3.5.
Okay.
Didn't you read the screen? What are you not paying attention to the show?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I can tell you right now, Jamar Chase is getting moved on a lot of teams. And I understand why. I mean, you don't have Joe Burrow coming back this year. It's just not happening. And then Jake Browning has been less than impressive. There's no doubt about that. So Jamar Chase is still an extraordinary talent, and I think buying him low is interesting. Why? Because if you do look, the schedule does get a little bit easier. The defense is still bad. Jake Browning has been productive.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Basically a year's worth of starts at this point, because remember, Drake May was not the starter out of the gate during his rookie year last year. That was Jacoby Brissett. There have been some, encouraging performances and, I think some flashes of what could be upper echelon talent within the scope of the league. But going into this year, it was, we're going to find out.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The NFL reimagining the Pro Bowl, plus will the Aces win their 3rd WNBA Finals in 4 years? Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thanks so much for joining us as we close out the week, because each and every weekday we're chatting the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We also have Gotham FC star Jess Carter on later to talk about their push for the NWSL playoff and much more. But first, let's dive into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start, Renee, with news that the NFL working on reimagining the Pro Bowl this season. This would take place in the same city as the Super Bowl. The Athletic got their hands on a statement from the league saying that the new look Pro Bowl would, quote, celebrate the league's top players, deepen fan engagement, and this is what I thought was most interesting, Renee, spotlight flag football, especially in light of the LA 28 Olympics. Now, the league plans to announce its revamped Pro Bowl plans in the coming weeks. We know a lot of the other leagues, from Major League Baseball to the NBA, others have tried to sort of catch up to the NHL in terms of having a great marquee all-star game. The NFL's in the same boat.
Yeah, and the NFL over the years, people might not know the history. When you look back to even 1970 to 2009, it took place the week after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
It was typically in Honolulu, Hawaii, which
Yep.
doesn't sound like a bad deal to me. For 30 consecutive years, they changed it for several years and then eventually switched it to being the week before the Super Bowl. And we know that most recent change in 2022, where they moved from traditional tackle football, the AFC versus NFC, to then flag football and having the skills competition. And so when you look at the numbers, the last 3 seasons, ratings have dropped consistently each year, to the point that this past year was an all-time low of an 18% decrease, dropped by more than 1 million viewers and more than 2 million viewers since 2022. So they're not in a good space in terms of viewership. They might have to reach out to Rob Manfred at Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball has had the best all-star format across sports consistently. Their numbers have been in a really good spot. And so if they can have 8.1 million viewers for the Midsummer Classic,
so you're
the
saying
NFL might need to figure out a way.
needs to swing off, is what you're
Correct.
saying. The hardest thing for the NFL is getting players who have spent so much work this last season, or the last season, to compete in this thing, because you don't want to get injured. You don't want any of that stuff to happen. So I think the flag football announcement, and Roger Goodell even said in the last couple weeks, he really wants to invest heavily in flag football. He thinks there will be a league. I almost think that is where the Pro Bowl is going to go.
And a good point that it's at the end of the season, teams are done, except the 2 playing the Super Bowl, versus other all-star formats, which are typically in the middle point.
All right, meanwhile, speaking of the Super Bowl, amid debate of the selection of Bad Bunny to headline the halftime show, The conservative advocacy group Turning Point USA say they plan on creating their own counter halftime show called the All-American Halftime Show. Now, the group says the show would celebrate faith, family, and freedom with a fan option on the group's website to vote for performers who speak English. Now, Turning Point said that they would announce which artists would perform at a later date, but one of the bands I think that they're really courting is the band Creed, it sounds like.
I will keep my comments as professional here as possible. Let's keep the numbers clear because coming off of Kendrick Lamar's halftime show last year, the most watched halftime show in NFL history with around 133.5 million viewers, it had a lot of symbolic messages to the current and even past political state of the country.
Sure.
There was a lot in there. And so it is no surprise to me that here, as we fast forward to Bad Bunny's announcement as the first ever male Latin performer for the halftime show, we are getting this other aspect of maybe an alternative halftime show, because I know you and I spoke about this before. When you look at the history of halftime performers and going back to since Rock Nation started working with the NFL in 2020, since 2019 it's been all black, brown, Spanish halftime performers. The Beyoncés and Bruno Mars and Dr. Dre, Shakira, the list goes on and on. And there was a time we had more of Lady Gaga and Justin Timberlake, and even going back to rock bands prior to that.
The Who and Paul McCartney.
I just feel like it's no surprise that now we're in a space where groups are wanting a different aspect of the halftime show to produce their own.
I think now it's opened the door that there's always going to be counter programming for the halftime show. Somebody's going to want to see if they can get eyeballs, and I think there's outrage across the country, no matter who the person's going to be, every year that there's going to be a counter programming. The thing is I don't think it'll be any network, though, that has a relationship with the NFL, because the NFL will not want any network.
Bad Bunny, most streamed artist, one of the top across the globe with Taylor Swift and Drake. So the NFL, in my opinion, still got this right with that announcement.
All right. Well, after 36 years on TNT, ESPN says Inside the NBA will make its big debut on the network on October 22nd. That is part of ESPN's opening tip-off. However, fans did notice that Ernie, Kenny, Charles, and Shaq only are appearing on ESPN 2 more times after that until Christmas, after which they'll be on a more consistent basis starting in January. Now, Inside the NBA pregame shows on ESPN will start an hour before tip-off, with postgame shows starting immediately after the game ends.
We all wondered what this would look like after 36 years with TNT on Turner Sports, and to have the hour-long program that not the full hour is going to be visible online. Sometimes you might have to move, from ESPN to the app, to other channels, but also that major concern about access. They went from being weekly to now just being 2 additional times after that October 22nd doubleheader, and then 15 times we'll see them in the remainder of the season from January to the end of this regular season. So a little bit different, and I'm very interested to see how people are going to take this news.
Very good point. Well, let's move to the WNBA, as the Aces will try to close out the series Friday in Game 4 to win their 3rd WNBA championship in 4 years. Asia Wilson's been dominant in this series. So did the Mercury have what it takes to come back? And what is the status also in the labor talks between the league and the players ahead of the CBA expiration? Let's take a look at that in today's main event. All right, let's go to the Mortgage Matchup Center, home of Game 4 tonight in Phoenix, with our Annie Costabile, our women's sports reporter. So, Annie, give us an idea of what it's like on the ground there, and do we think the Mercury have what it takes to come back down 3-0?
Yeah, this Mercury team has been very difficult. They've overtaken the top seeds or teams that were projected to make it back to the finals in the New York Liberty and the top seeded Lynx. But without Satu Sabali, who is ruled out for Game 4 with a concussion, this challenge just got a whole lot more daunting. And so based on the way that the Aces have been clicking, and obviously led by 4-time MVP Asia Wilson, it is looking like the Aces could make a clean sweep in this finals.
And Annie, coming into the league's first ever best-of-7 series, we were excited to see this play out. Through this 3-0 start, we have at least had the first 2 games of this series had the best viewership in WNBA Finals history going back 20 years. So when you look at the other storyline, though, that's taken over, it's been the Aces and Asia Wilson emerging as the new dynasty of the WNBA. Of course, if they win this, still 1 title shy of the Houston Comets dynasty. Where do you stand on the Aces really showing, even with the roster changes, they are the new dynasty of the WNBA?
Yeah, I mean, even more recent than the Houston Comets, it's obviously the Minnesota Lynx that, led by Maya Moore, dominated, in recent years and won their most recent title in 2017, and that was their fourth. And then they obviously made it back to the finals last year, but they've not been able to obviously recreate that dynasty era. And we're seeing the Aces are in mid dynasty form. And what's really, I think, unique about what the Aces are doing right now, or not even unique, but I think speaks to their dominance and the fact that we are watching a dynasty in the making, is this team went through a lot of change. The roster went through a lot of change this last offseason, and led by Asia Wilson, Jackie Young, and Chelsea Gray, they were still able to maintain that level of excellence. And so, with Jewel Lloyd in the fold, who is 9-0 in finals games, is undefeated in finals games, they've been able to again recreate that championship aura.
Annie, after this is over, though, all things are up in the air. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the collective bargaining agreement that expires at the end of the month. What have you been hearing in the lead up to these conversations? Anything new here?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, obviously, because when the finals end, there's going to be about 2 weeks before the October 31st deadline. What many believe is that October 31st deadline is not going to be hit. An extension is likely going to be necessary, according to multiple sources. And beyond that, the players are really preparing for all scenarios. I've spoken to a couple players who, have played out the scenario of a lockout. They are financially preparing for that, although other sources indicate that a lockout is not necessarily anticipated at this stage. There's still the possibility of an extension, which is likely going to be what we see carry out here. But beyond that, players have Unrivaled coming up right after the conclusion of this season. So they really have a ton of leverage in terms of these negotiations, because they do have other supplementary income that, if things get pushed to a possibility of a lockout, they have other streams of income in place.
Yeah,
Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, other options.
And Unrivaled will start in January. Annie Constable for us over at the WNBA Finals in Phoenix. Thank you, Annie. And we got more Front Office Sports Today headed your way, everyone, right after this quick break.
Shedeur Sanders will be starting for the Browns by week 9. I am buying this. I am buying this absolutely. At a certain point, Joe Flacco just not the answer. We know they already made the change. Dylan Gabriel is starting this week. We know that. But maybe a team needs a quarterback, and they're willing to trade for Joe Flacco for some level of stability, and then we simply get nothing out of Dylan Gabriel. He is a rookie quarterback when it's all said and done. Maybe there's just no production from him. So why not just move on to a different rookie quarterback that you have, just to see what you have? And then, as you mentioned up at the top, you have to evaluate going into next year's draft. So I will absolutely buy this.
The next 4 weeks, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Miami, New England. The question is this. If they truly believe that Gabriel could be a future starter, you got to give him more than 4 weeks, right? That's 4 weeks is not enough. Minnesota, it's a rough game, all right, being played, England this week. Pittsburgh, they haven't have a defense. Miami is not very good. New England's supposed to have a good defense, hasn't here. I'm going to sort of go. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to start at some point this week. I don't think it's going to be by week 10, although that does make sense here to name him the starter during the bye week, get him 2 weeks here. I'm going to go more, maybe double digits, week 12, week 14, somewhere around there. Because I want to give Gabriel a longer run. I think Gabriel might do some damage here against these lesser defenses here. So I like to give him a longer runway here. That being said, I do not think Gabriel is the long-term future of this team. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback at all here. I think he's a number 2 at best here. Sanders could be a number 1. I have doubts about him too. I think Sanders has a better shot. So by week 9, by week 10, I'll sell that. But if you're going to give me a couple more weeks, I would have bought it.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, a lot is going on with the state of women's basketball right now, from the future of the WNBA ahead of their collective bargaining negotiations to startup leagues like Athletes Unlimited and, of course, Unrivaled. So to give us her thoughts on the state of women's basketball, let's bring in current Athletes Unlimited and former college hoop star Deja Kelly. Deja, good to always see you as always. So let's talk about the conversations maybe you're having with friends, players, all of that about the current state right now of the WNBA, especially after Nafisa Collier's comments.
Yeah, the WNBA is such an important league. It's a great platform for players like me, like my peers, to have a platform to be able to, continue to grow their game and continue to show who they are. And I think, now is such a critical time for the CBA negotiations and for players. Players have leverage right now, but I think, just continuing to have those conversations, hopefully the action takes place pretty soon. I think just hearing, what my peers are saying, we just want to feel recognized and respected consistently.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that because you are one of those strong younger voices. I mean, the Fisa Collier, the Asia Wilsons are the veterans that have been helping the league, but you are one of the many young voices that are also pushing. What do you see as those main components that have to be included in discussing and honestly done correctly with this CBA for the future of women's basketball?
Yeah, I think, some players, some of the younger players who are rising stars and things like that, just continue to use our voices and our platforms. I think that's big because that causes a lot of movement, that causes a lot of action, hopefully action to be taken. So, we understand our platforms, we understand, the level of where our voices can go. And so I think just continuing to do that, but, voicing what we want, voicing what we need, as players, what we need as a league, what we need from them and vice versa. I think going from that, I think something that I'm really excited for too is playing in Athletes Unlimited because, that's another great platform to not only continue to play basketball, to continue to hoop, but to also have another space and another platform to be able to speak up as players, to be able to use our platforms and continue to grow in that way. And I think the right conversations are happening. Someone like Nafisa, Asia, seeing them speak up, superstars like that, being able to speak up for what we want and what we need is really phenomenal.
Well, just piggybacking off of the Athletes Unlimited thing that you mentioned, because obviously there's an allure to that, there's an allure to Unrivaled, there's an allure to all of these other leagues. 10 years from now, will the WNBA be the prestige league that it is now, or will there be so much competition from other leagues out there that it's just going to be a different sort of game then?
Hopefully not. I think, like I said, I think the WNBA is so important, and it has shown so much growth over the past couple of years. We've seen it. It keeps moving. I keep saying it, but it's moving in the right direction. Obviously, there has to be some negotiations and some changes to that. That's just a fact. But I think with the other leagues, I don't want to say it should be in competition. I think those are just more platforms and more opportunities for...
It's more supplemental.
Yeah, for women to play basketball. Because the WNBA right now is so small, Athletes Unlimited, Unrivaled, Overseas, whatever that looks like, that just gives you more opportunity to play. That gives more girls more opportunities with 156 spots now. That just expands. So I don't think it should necessarily be in competition. I think the WNBA will get to where it needs to be, to where the players feel, valued.
Opportunities are key, and I know, as you touched on, you've got plenty of opportunities now for players to continue to grow in their career. What have you seen on the inside regarding, now that you're in that post-college space as a professional, what it's like to have these opportunities? Because I think many don't realize how difficult it is navigating what to do, what's next, figuring out what makes sense for you financially, but also tapping into whether it's broadcasting that you've been able to do or other components that women's basketball players have now that didn't exist in the past. You either were in the league or that was it.
Right. True. Yep. I think for me, just being able to build that foundation of, different layers of myself and with broadcasting, with modeling, with, being a businesswoman, whatever that looks like, being able to have those different avenues and grow that. So right when I'm out of college and seeing how, cutthroat the WNBA is, it's just, roster spaces, again, that'll grow. But, having to navigate all of that has been definitely a journey and definitely has not been easy. But like I said, having something to look forward to with Athletes Unlimited, in the off season to continue to play and continue to using that as a platform to get put on a WNBA roster. That's basically what it's just using my resources. There's so many good vets that are going to be playing in it. There's so many other good rookies who are going to be playing in it. So being able to compete against them, and it'll be a really competitive league, and I'm really excited to, like I said, continue to grow my brand on and off the court.
Well, also, even from a broadcasting perspective, we have people like Aaliyah Boston and others who are doing it while they're playing.
Right.
I mean, I think that is kind of amazing too, to sort of see that you're getting an insight from players who are still playing at the highest levels, but also giving us keen insight to how a lot of these things are going down.
Especially following in the footsteps of the Candace Parkers, Janae
Agumake,
even Rebecca Lobo, so many players that are, whether active or retired, Renee Montgomery, that have been broadcasters. What do you see as that shift that's really propelling that too?
Yeah, I think the WNBA has allowed some players to continue to grow their brands outside of, just the season. And I think you've seen that with Aaliyah, with Shanae, with so many different players. Candace, Chelsea Gray has done some, broadcasting in the off season. So that's kind of, the footsteps that I want to follow and doing both, because why not? Mm-hmm. You literally can. And I think, it just provides a different platform for you to be able to be versatile and be multifaceted in that way. And that's what I have always aimed to do, and I've always tried to do, as a college athlete and now as a pro, just continuing to follow different passions and build my portfolio with media and as a businesswoman and also as a basketball player, because that's something that, can carry long term. The ball won't bounce forever. So, so just kind of building those different avenues.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't get you out of here on this. Let's talk quickly about the WNBA finals. You were in the training camp for the Las Vegas Aces. They're in their third finals in the last 4 years, and they're really sort of putting Phoenix away. They're already up 3-0. What sort of insight from what you've experienced with the team and how Becky Hammon has coached this team makes them so dominant and so good?
Becky Hammon is a mastermind. She was one of my favorite players growing up. So, seeing that competitive spirit that she had as a player, she carries that as a coach. And obviously they're led by, superstar A'ja Wilson, who is, as dominant as she is on the court, she's an even better person, even better leader. And I think that's why they are where they are now, and why they were able to turn it around by this end of the season, or by this time of the season, to be able to make it to hopefully win their third championship. But yeah, I think those are the two that keep the wheels turning, and obviously there's so many different parts to that organization. But I think in Lifetime we're seeing, one of the greatest players ever.
Is this a dynasty? Is this a dynasty, by the way?
Maybe, I would say. I mean, like I said, A'ja is the head of the snake. Probably not even arguably the best player that we've seen. That's my GOAT. So, I'm excited to continue to watch the rest of the finals.
And we're excited to see all the stuff that you have on the horizon as well. Deja, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we got a lot more Front Office Sports today headed your way, everyone, right after this quick break.
At this event, people from Amazon and Alexa made it very clear that in addition to Sports Highlight coming up, you will be able to perhaps buy sports tickets to events, buy movie tickets, arrange fantasy football teams, and I think somewhere down the road, and maybe not too far down the road, given the NBA on Prime deal, they will allow sports betting on the television set through Alexa Plus.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Are we going to sit here today and acknowledge that the Indianapolis Colts right now are the best team in the AFC?
They are right now.
They can run the football with Taylor. They got a competent quarterback, the way he's playing right now, in Daniel Jones. They are well coached.
They never punt.
They never punt.
They never punt.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Well, maybe that Chiefs dynasty is actually crumbling. And listen, I don't blame you for that, but you would be wrong. Here's what actually happened in that game last night. See, the Kansas City Chiefs dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars pretty much up and down that field. They outgained them, Donnie. You ready by this? By over 150 yards of offense.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Question, where's the $100,000 going? Like, if I'm going to give it to Amari DiMercato as an apology? It does give us a little bit of insight, though, into that moment. Like, I wondered what Gannon had said to DiMercato there. It obviously did, cost Arizona a football game in a division that they cannot afford. But that is an interesting one.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. With only 2 weeks left in the NWSL regular season, 6 playoff spots remain up for grabs. With a win against Kansas City this weekend, Gotham FC would punch their ticket to the postseason. So let's bring in star defender for Gotham FC as well as the England national team, Jess Carter. Jess, thank you so very much for joining us. We'll get to the NWSL playoffs and so many other things here in a moment. But I first want to start off with your partnership with Elf Beauty and the show Show Yourself series. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, firstly, thanks for having me. Great to get to speak to you guys. Yeah, Elf approached me, and to be honest, when I first saw my manager sent over Elf, I said no, thank you. Just purely because I'm not a makeup person. I couldn't tell you the first thing about makeup, and I thought it was going to be a typical, show how you do your makeup or your hair or something. And then I spoke to him a little bit more, and once I understood what Show Yourself was, and it wasn't about hair or makeup at all, it was about them finding a way to find people that they think are strong people and doing great in what they do, and trying to show more of their story. And for me, it was about trying to show people who I am and be someone that younger girls could look up to, because I didn't have anyone growing up that looked like me, that did what I did, that I could try and aspire to be like. So I think now seeing whether it's other players that I play with or have played with doing loads of different work with different brands, I think is really amazing to see, showing that there's opportunities out there to work with different brands. Because I know for myself and a lot of people that I've played with, we want to use our platform to show other people what they can do and what they can achieve, and be the person that we wish we would have had when we were younger. So it's incredible seeing that opportunity for players, and I really hope that continues to grow, and more brands try and not just say they want to help and say they want to help improve the game, but actually really work with players from all different types of backgrounds to share their stories, not just the same type of people.
Obviously, you're with the NWSL now, but you've also played an international career with great clubs like Chelsea as well. We just had Alexis Ohanian on just the other day, and he owns Chelsea, and he also owns an NWSL team as well. And we were sort of asking him, what do you think will become the first billion-dollar franchise? And he kind of didn't answer that. I guess my question to you is, having seen all these different stages and all these different clubs out there, what do you think is the premier soccer club in the world for women?
You know what? I have no idea. That is a great question. And I think for myself, I try my best to just focus on the actual football itself. Because I think that unfortunately so many owners come and go, and so many promise a lot of stuff that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So I try not to get too invested in that side of things. I think I've seen it fall apart all too easy. I think I just try and focus on what we can do on the pitch, and hopefully growing the club from that perspective, and growing the fan bases from what we can do as athletes and as performers. But I don't have an answer for you on that side of things, unfortunately.
Okay. Let's focus on the side on the pitch, because as you and Baker mentioned, I know earlier in the show, as you go into this weekend, win and you're in. 6 playoff spots up for grabs. Several teams can clinch this weekend. A few teams on the brink of elimination, and yet another NWSL regular season coming down to the final games. As a leader of this club and one of the biggest names across the league, I'm curious your thoughts on how much this fight to extend your season to the finish line of the regular season really helps fans, but also players alike, be able to be so excited to have a chance to play the game.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most exciting leagues I think I've ever been part of. It is crazy, that's for sure. It does just make it exciting, I think, for the fans and for the players, maybe a bit nerve-wracking for the coaches, but knowing that every game that we go out is almost like a cup game. Every game matters so much, and there is no room for error or to be complacent, and I think that really brings out the highest, the best level in the best teams and the best players, really.
Well, going to be an amazing game this weekend against Kansas City. Gotham FC's defender, Jess Carter, joining us. Jess, thank you so very much for joining us, and best of luck this weekend.
Great. Thank you so much.
And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, NBA GMs think Oklahoma City is still the title favorites. This, according to the NBA.com annual anonymous GM survey. Nikola Jokic was the overwhelming favorite to win his 4th MVP award, and Victor Wembanyama, the favorite of GMs if they could have one player to start their franchise with. What do you think of these?
Well, across the 49 questions that the GMs were asked regarding players, coaches, even offseason moves and team moves, the Atlanta Hawks was actually very surprising as the best offseason across the league to beat out the Houston Rockets with their acquisition of Kevin Durant and others. And yeah, there were some other teams, Orlando, that you could point at as well. But one thing that jumps out at me is a number of these answers to me pointed to the GMs voting in favor of the next generation of stars.
True.
It's Luka Doncic, it's Anthony Edwards, it's Jalen Brunson, Victor Wembanyama, so many others. So I think it just shows where the league is at now, that we're not getting the usuals, LeBron James and Steph Curry and others. We're getting that under 30 crew that's really emerging across the league.
Thing that surprised me, not surprised me, but I thought was really interesting. They asked what player right now is playing that you think is going to be the next head coach.
Yes.
27% of them said Chris Paul is going to be a big, great coach
also
in the
because
NBA.
he's going to be retiring very soon.
Yes, also true. It's like his
closer to
900th
becoming
season
a coach.
as well. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Have a great rest of your weekend. Renee and I are back on.
Contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest,